Scripture reading this morning is from the first book of John, chapter 4, verse 18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love. Thus ends the reading of Scripture. How is everyone doing today? Good? Okay. You know, if I were to sit down with each of you and ask you that question, perhaps over a cup of tea or a glass of wine, your response might be a little different. Instead of saying good or fine, you might share that you were concerned or maybe worried, or perhaps even a little ticked off. And that would be okay. No judgment here. Whether it's concern over problems with the economy and how this affects your ability to be able to pay the bills, or frustration with the ongoing political environment, how you can't even stand to turn on the TV anymore, or worry about what's happening in other parts of the world, worry about our relationships with these countries, or worry about matters in our own country, the droughts, the wildfires, the flooding. Or maybe it's worry about things happening a little closer to home. Maybe it's the news of the thousands of immigrants that were recently bused to DC from Texas. Or perhaps the 4,000 beagles that were thankfully rescued from that horrible facility in Cumberland, Virginia, that were breeding dogs for laboratory testing. There's a lot on everyone's mind right now. It's a difficult time, or at least a different time in the history of our country. I picked up a magazine recently, and the page I turned to said, "The world today stands at the crossroads of civilization. It must move in one of two directions, either backward to devastating carnage and ultimate barbarism, or forward towards spiritual understanding and the highest civilization ever seen on this earth. The direction it takes is not foreordained. It is not determined by blind fate. We are free to go in whichever direction we choose." I found this to be a rather interesting comment. And then I was also somewhat comforted by the last statement, the realization that we are indeed free to go in whichever direction we choose. Now, surely, I thought, we would not want to sit back and watch the world regress. We would want to move forward with a clear spiritual direction, right? How do we do this? Where do we start? When facing any challenge or difficulty, either personally or one that's happening in the world, I always find that it serves me well to ask this question: what would love do to fix this? Then I always try to take action that coincides with the answer, doing it with the thought and solely the thought of love in mind. Do you think when Mother Teresa was caring for the sick person, she asked them, "What religion are you?" or "What political party are you affiliated with?" No, her actions had nothing to do with any such things. She went about her work caring for the sick with only love in mind. Only when we speak, act, and lead from love can we truly expect the greatest love to unfold. Now, maybe to some that sounds a little Pollyanna, but any other way leads us to a place where reaching our fullest potential isn't really an option. Turn on the TV to any news channel and you'll hear mostly negative stories in the headlines. Listening to these stories over and over again will inevitably bring you down, make you think negative of the world around you. But when we can collectively come together, like we do here on Sunday mornings at AMC, and become part of a movement where the focus is on the spiritual side of life, we can experience a shift in consciousness and a new era of love can rise up. Perhaps the bigger question is, how can we stay spiritual during these stressful times? What will help us act from a place of love instead of stress, frustration, or maybe even anger? For a long time, watching the news and staying on top of local and national events has been part of my daily routine. You might say I'm a news junkie. I've always felt that it's important to stay informed on what's happening in the world rather than to turn our back on things and be in denial. But lately, I have to say that I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe even a little more than a little overwhelmed. Even before the coronavirus and the pandemic, which of course is by no means over, and the global economic crisis, which seems to get more concerning with every passing day, we had mass shootings, wildfires, floods, and other natural disasters. There was endless turmoil at the borders, and of course, the political divide in our country, with each side contemptuous and fearful of the other. But today it seems a little more exhausting. Did you notice that? And news of the outer world is not the only problem. We are all faced with inner challenges, personal issues, financial issues, conflicts with friends and families, all kinds of things that can keep us lying awake at night. So how can we stay sane? How can we handle these stressful feelings? How can we see events through spiritual eyes? Well, I wish I had all the answers, but I don't. What I can offer instead are ways for us to think about it, ways to shift our thoughts so that maybe we can break it down to more manageable levels, which will then hopefully allow us to look at the situations at hand in a more positive manner. I'd suggest that we start off by getting the facts, all of the facts, or as many as you can. Having this information is important. Find a reputable, objective source so that you can know what's really going on with whatever situation is causing you concern. Try not to get sucked in by the fear and the what ifs. Facts are neutral, and our reaction to them is what causes the drama, or not. Remember, this is the soul's journey you agreed to take on this planet at this time. You chose this, and there is great work to be done, great spiritual progress to be made. Maybe instead of forming an immediate opinion, try to take a few moments to think it over. This will allow us to stay in the present moment without judging the circumstances. Our minds will remain peaceful enough to really look at the issues and try to understand them. Next, try to stay centered. We don't want fear to control our lives. We don't want to let our imagination run wild and envision the worst. Ask yourself this question: what is happening right now, right here in this moment? Am I okay? Chances are, in this present moment, you are okay. Write down several things you have to be thankful for. Start a gratitude journal if you don't have one already. Expressing gratitude can help put things into perspective. Next, think about what you can maybe learn from the situation at hand. It's not a bad idea to wonder periodically what you can learn from whatever is upsetting you. Are you feeling threatened? Are you being prejudiced? Is there a reason why? Have you ever spoken out and then later realized that maybe you were wrong? It's basically a check-in with your spiritual growth. This is a good time to remember our fourth declaration of principles, that of personal responsibility. Whatever happiness or unhappiness that you're currently experiencing is due to your reactions to the situation at hand. Next, think about possible outcomes. Is this situation really that bad, or could it possibly lead to some good? We can all recount stories when something we first labeled as a disaster turned out to be a blessing. Haven't you heard people say that cancer was their friend and teacher, or getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to them, or a divorce that they initially resisted actually set them free to go on and do new things in their life? Stay open to the possibility that what you now think of as bad may actually turn out to be good in due time. Next, in trying to stay spiritual during these challenging times, devote energy to your meditation practice. Find a quiet place to sit for a few moments each day and just be. Allow yourself to feel guided and inspired. Too often, activism stems from anger. The actions we sometimes take are actually reactions against whatever we perceive as wrong or bad. If we come from a state of resistance, we often only generate more conflict. Go within, align with spirit before coming to any conclusions. And don't be afraid to ask spirit, what is mine to do? The answer might surprise you. We each have different gifts, and every contribution makes a difference. As Mother Teresa said, you don't have to save the world. Don't look for big things, just do small things with great love. And pray. As stated in our scripture this morning, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not reached perfection in love. Could we release fear and substitute love? Remember, we're not here to transcend the human experience. It's what we came here for. We knew there would be pain and drama. We wanted to help. We wanted to grow spiritually. We were made for these very times. If not, we wouldn't be here. When pain and drama are part of the experience, it's no time to turn away. Instead, it's time to pray. In his book, Practical Metaphysics, Reverend Eric Butterworth said, the important key to effective living, then, is not trying to find the way to set things right and to straighten people out and to get the world to stop acting like it does. Not to set things right, but to see them rightly. Next, try focusing on the ultimate goal. We all want the same things in life, right? Peace, prosperity. I'm reminded of the movie Miss Congeniality with Sandra Bullock. Some of you may have seen that. When the beauty contestants are being interviewed and they say, what do we all want? World peace. Thank you. We all want to live a life filled with more harmony and good fortune. And it's important to know that having peace and prosperity in our lives is not only possible, it's readily available for each and every one of us. However, we may not always find it where we look for it. So how do we find it? Where do we get it? Where does it come from? In words similar to those of Alfred Tennyson regarding God, he said, it's closer than you think, closer than breathing, and nearer than hands and feet. True peace and prosperity is on the inside of you. They begin within and manifest without. They are an inner creation, an inner experience. Isaiah 26:3 says that God, meaning divine mind, infinite intelligence, source, spirit, will keep in perfect peace all who trust in God, all whose thoughts are fixed on God. As we see, the inner creates the outer. What we think about, we bring about. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. It's the law of mind in action. If we choose peaceful thoughts, we experience peace. If we think prosperous thoughts, we experience well-being in all areas of life. We are the creators of our own peace and prosperity by how we control and direct our minds. Buddha was quoted as saying, "To enjoy good health, to bring true happiness to one's family, to bring peace to all, one must first discipline and control one's own mind. If a man can control his mind, he can find his way to enlightenment, and all wisdom and virtue will naturally come to him." The Dalai Lama said, "We can never obtain peace in the world if we neglect the inner world and don't make peace with ourselves. World peace must develop out of inner peace. True peace and prosperity are indeed an inside job." Pretty wise men, I think. And finally, know this: you are part of a bigger picture. We may not always see the big picture, but I have to believe that there is one. Maybe the things that are happening in the world today are for the individual growth of each one of our souls. Maybe it's a collective experience to push society forward. Maybe these difficult times are to create a so-called correction in the universe to get us all back on track. Either way, know that there is more unfolding that meets the eye, and there is no fear in love. Trust, have faith, all is in divine order, and may it be so. For our hymn of information today, I've got peace like a river. Now, what does it mean to have peace like a river? The river always finds a way to go around or to go over obstacles. It simply just keeps flowing. So when I think of peace like a river, I think of peace as something that can be continually flowing in our lives, despite any circumstances or obstacles that may get in our path.